It is a real pleasure to have you here in San Diego and to have an opportunity to speak with you about your accomplishments and especially about your grandmother, who was one of the very first African American women to work with NASA as a human computer. Can you tell us a little bit about what took her where it did?
Okay, thank you so much for having me here this afternoon. It is really fantastic to be here in San Diego. My grandmother's name was Miriam Mann. She was born in Covington, Georgia in 1907. She went to Talladega College in Alabama, and she majored in chemistry. Originally, she was going to be a chemistry teacher, but she ended up falling in love, marrying my grandfather, who was on the faculty of Hampton Institute in Virginia. She was going to be a faculty wife, but World War II broke out, and when her children were 8, 7, and 6 years old, she was recruited by NASA to take the civil service exam. She passed, and she became a human computer. The 7-year-old was my mom, and I grew up hearing all the stories about my grandmother.
Well, you've done a lot to make this knowledge just worldwide, but especially among African Americans, because this is the kind of thing that we knew nothing about. Most of us,
Right,
absolutely
right.
nothing. And started with the book.
Yep.
You want to
Hidden Human Computers, The Black Women of NASA.
Yes, yes. It started with 11, among which was your grandma.
Yeah, yeah.
And it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. Can you talk about what we can do to get our grandchildren, our great grandchildren involved in something like this?
I mean, sure. I love to tell people that you can't let anyone put a ceiling on your sky. And if you see any kind of profession, even if there are people in it that don't look like you, that doesn't mean that it's for you. My grandmother did not have an easy time in her early part of her career at NASA. The first 10 years she was there, she had to stay hidden in her building. She ate at her desk. And then for close to 10 years after that, she ate in a segregated cafeteria. However, my grandmother worked there until 1966. By then, it was completely desegregated. She met the astronaut John Glenn, and she worked on Friendship 7. This is for a woman that was born 60 years after slavery ended. So if she can do it, young people can do it today.
Is it true that John Glenn refused to go up in space unless she was the mathematician, the computer?
It was Katherine Johnson actually who worked with my grandmother. My grandmother got to NASA 10 years before Katherine Johnson. But that is a true story, and it was because at the time there was concern that the IBM computers were making mistakes. And so they actually relied on the women that did the calculations with pencils and paper.
It's an incredible story, and when I saw the movie, it made me feel so good because I never knew anything about African American women being involved in those kinds of jobs, those kinds of physicians. It just absolutely blew my mind, and I'm sure that's true for many African American women, especially we who are a wee bit older.
Well, I mean, I think that this is a way to celebrate historically black colleges and universities. I did not attend an HBCU, but six generations of my family went to Hampton University, and my grandparents are buried on the campus of Hampton. And so this kind of work actually came out of the space of those kinds of colleges. Now this has been going on for close to 100 years. And so it's something to think about. So if students don't want to apply to HBCUs, they could always apply to go to McAllister College and take a class from me there because that's where I work.
That's where you work. Yes, yes. So have you retired and focusing really on book writing and traveling the country
Well,
to educate?
I would love to retire, but financially that seems to be about 15 years off. What I will be doing is taking an academic sabbatical. So this will be my last semester teaching for 15 months, and I'll spend the next 15 months writing books.
Excellent. I am just about to check out of the library this book.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that.
And tell the audience a little bit more about this book, why you wrote it, and what you
Okay.
hope to
Okay. One of
accomplish.
the things I'd like to accomplish about this book is that I'd like people to know also the history of NASA, that there are actually 10 NASA sites. There isn't just a NASA in Virginia. 8 are in the Deep South. One's in Cleveland, Ohio, and the other one is out here in California, the Jet Propulsion Center. And so I would love them to know that, and I would love them to think about the politics of possibility. And what I mean by that is that it's always possible to pursue something, even if you haven't seen it.
Well, we know that happened thanks to you.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sure.